College, an educational institution where you can learn from experienced faculty, a sanctuary for those looking to find themselves, as well as a hotspot for partying, substance exploration, and waking up full of regrets. College is something that has become ingrained in our society as something that everyone should consider making an effort to attend. After all, education is undoubtedly beneficial for everyone, and college does offer a nice opportunity to learn from seasoned professors, and it contains a multitude of resources. Not to mention the little piece of paper you get at the end that proves you're capable of at least showing up to the same place for 4 years. While there is no doubt that college can be an enriching experience, I think it's time for us to question if it really is as necessary as everyone makes it out to be. So let's dive right in and talk about the question: should you go to college?
Oftentimes, business education today, and I see it all the time, kids come out of college, the best colleges, Wharton and Harvard and Stanford and some of the great business schools, and they'll come out and they won't have practical experience. There's too many case studies that aren't practical.
You know, we ask kids that are 16 to 18 years old to make $100,000 debt decisions when they go off to university. And they're not prepared for that. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. They just assume, okay, I'm going to pay 4 years of education at $25,000 a pop, and when I come out the other side, somehow I'll be able to pay it back.
Right.
That's not how life works anymore.
There's no need even to have a college degree at all, or even high school. I mean, if somebody graduated from a great university, that may be an indication that they will be capable of great things, but it's not necessarily the case. You know, if you look at, say, people like Bill Gates or Larry Ellison, Steve Jobs, these guys didn't graduate from college. But if you had a chance to hire them, of course, that would be a good idea.
What's up, guys? We're back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about college. Clearly, there's some divide about whether or not college is actually necessary. I mean, if you ask around, it seems like the majority of people will say the answer is obvious. How could you not agree that college is essential for success in the working world? But at the same time, you'll hear the most wealthy and the most successful people in the world say the opposite. That's a little weird, right? Well, like most answers to controversial questions, the answer is not so straightforward. To make an attempt to answer this question, I want to start with a simple pros and cons list, or rather, a list of reasons explaining why you should go to college and maybe why you shouldn't go. So let's start with the reasons why you should go, since it seems pretty easy to explain. I mean, I'm sure most people would be able to answer the benefits of why it's good to go to college, but just to clarify.
We need more gold.
Reason number one, I would say, is the resources. With a university, it usually has like labs and equipment, tutoring centers, counselors, academic advisors, libraries, and professors who have experience in the field that you want to study. But an important note, with these resources is that it's still up to you to explore these resources on your own. Personally, while I was attending university, I definitely didn't take advantage of all the resources that were available, but I did use some of them when I felt like it was necessary or like I really needed. Things like office hours where you meet your professors and you get to ask questions, or a good study center where I was able to focus better and things like that. If you're studying something like very specific, like something like an engineering degree or chemistry, or maybe even like biology, a lot of times, I knew students that were studying those things. Like, I don't see how they would be able to do it outside of college. I mean, the university or the college that you attend, I mean, when you're studying something like really specialized, they do a great job at providing necessary resources to help you learn. Things of like, if you're going to be a lawyer, I know a lot of people who studied law, they would have like clubs and groups where they would do like mock trials. And for people that are studying chemistry, I mean, like after they get their G's out of the way, they're pretty much spending all their time in lab. And like I said, like those are resources that you probably have a hard time finding anywhere else. So yeah, I'd say resources is probably like the biggest pro in terms of like whether or not you should go to college. I mean, if you're studying something very specialized where you need these resources, yes, that should be like no brainer. I mean, you have to go to college for that. But as far as like the other resources like study centers and libraries and like tutors and stuff, like where you can talk to someone about the problem, I mean, that isn't so exclusive to college. I mean, you can find a good study spot, you can find a library, you can find people to talk to. I guess, there's always YouTube if you need help, or like Google. So the first pro on whether or not you should go to college probably will be like the resources. That should be like a heavy determining factor on whether or not if you really need the resources.
Wakey, 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 it's time for school.
Next thing I want to talk about is organization / like motivation. So when you go to college, all these classes have a set structure. A professor will give you a syllabus describing more or less exactly what you will be learning and doing throughout the quarter or the semester. There are rules. There is a grading system to keep you moving at a consistent pace, and it gives you some motivation to keep going. Now, if you saw my last video where I talk about some of the problems with school, you'll remember how I mentioned like grades and the grading system as one of these problems, because oftentimes I think it kind of gives a wrong motivation. Some students learn to maximize the letters and points instead of focusing on, actually learning the information. However, it's still a system nonetheless that, gets you moving. Even if it's not perfect, trying to get that A still pushes some students to do something, whether it's to do the bare minimum or cheat or to actually like pass by learning. It's a motivator nonetheless. Another motivator is, of course, simply being around other students. There's a sense of community and, like we're in this together mentality that you get by just being around other students. If you're coming straight into college, like right out of high school, it's going to be nice to be around people with the same, like around the same age, with the same interests and the same goals. You're all there to learn and grow. And that's something that can be really essential for people to thrive and do well in school. You can form study groups and make friends. And even if you're not going into college straight out of high school, when I was in college, I had a roommate and he came in, he went to the military right out of high school and then came back to college to study. And, it was still great. Like, even though there was like an age gap, we still got along, and it was still like nice to just be around someone who's, just like interested in learning. And so even if you are older, like it'll still be comfortable just being around people with similar interests and goals, even if there is like an age gap. When you're around other people, you can form like study groups and you can make new friends, and that could really improve like your quality of life, and it can make learning like a better experience for you. Which kind of brings me to my next point, networking.
So listen, I was wondering, can I have your number?
Going to college is great for networking. Like I said, you can meet other students with similar passions and interests, and maybe you find someone that you can create a startup with. But I also remember every now and then the school would host like a major specific job fair where you can meet with real employers and do mock interviews and learn a little bit about what it takes to work for a company that you're interested in. I have heard of people getting jobs lined up for them after they graduate from these companies that they met at these fairs. So that's definitely a huge benefit, networking. Now, for my last pro on why college may be good, I think everybody is kind of familiar with this idea, but, it's fun, or it can be fun. This one may not matter to some people, but I feel like it's still a point worth noting. College can be a fun experience. I mean, I'm sure many of you already know this or have heard of this, but college does offer a lot of fun new experiences aside from academic. I mean, I gotta admit, I did have a good time at college. Well, at least besides that 1.5 years I was completely ruined by COVID. I mean, that was just unfortunate timing. I'm sure if you're going to college in the future, I mean, hopefully nothing like that ever happens. But in the time where I was like actually on campus, I did meet a lot of cool people, and university was actually the place that allowed me to kind of break out of my shell. Before college, I was like a complete shut-in. Like I rarely went out, didn't really go to parties, didn't really talk to anyone in high school, wasn't really that social. But I remember before I left home for college, I made a promise to myself that I'd reinvent myself and that I tried to let loose a little. And honestly, I feel like I did exactly that. I went from a man of few words, someone who only speaks when spoken to hence like the channel name, to someone who is now like comfortable with the sound of their own voice, as weird as that sounds. I'm no longer a complete shut-in, although I'd still label myself as like an introvert. But yeah, I'm not sure if I would have been able to break that like social barrier and be as comfortable as I am now socially if I hadn't gone to college. It forced me out of my shell, and it may do the same for you. For many students that attend college, it's their first time away from home, and I think it could be a good segue for students to kind of help them, get prepared for being on their own. Now, however, just like I said with the resources, it's like entirely up to you whether or not you want to take advantage of this opportunity. I consciously made the effort to use college as a way to experiment with myself and, find myself, if you want to put it that way. So, like I said, with all these points, like college offers, like it kind of bundles all these things up, like networking, resources, a place to have fun. It puts it all in one location. And, it just makes it easier for a lot of people. Like you can do a lot of things at once at college because it's all there. But, just like with life in general, it's entirely up to you if you want to, really reap the benefits and take advantage of those things. I know plenty of people that go to college and, they come out exactly the same because they didn't really take advantage. Maybe they focused too much on the fun part. So yeah, so it's something to be careful of. Like even though I listed all of these like pros, it's not like anyone is there to kind of hold you like accountable. Like it's entirely up to you to keep yourself on track and motivated. School kind of just makes it easier for you to stay on track and motivated because there's other students there that are doing the same thing, that kind of like, you look around, if you're not doing anything and you look around, everyone else is doing something, it kind of puts you in a spot where it's like, oh, well, I feel like I have to do something. And that could be something that pushes you to, keep moving forward.
You can't do this to me, Krabs. I went to college!
So if I were to summarize, I'd say the biggest pros for going to college is, one, if you're studying something very specialized where you need to take advantage of the resources like labs and experienced faculty and study groups and, that sorts of thing. Or, if you're someone that, kind of has a hard time keeping yourself on track, school does provide kind of like fake discipline with like grades and stuff, and I guess like other students that can kind of pressure you to take more action, so motivation and resources are probably like the biggest pros to going to college. And fun, it's fun, so like that could be like a big pro for some people, but like college is really expensive. So if you're just going for fun, I'm sorry, but that's probably not enough reason to go to college. But resources, networking, keeping you on track and motivated, that college is great for that. So now let's talk about some of the reasons why maybe you shouldn't go to college, or maybe you should like reconsider.
The entire purpose of a good university is to give you a foundation to fail, not a foundation to get an A. And if you graduate from college with straight A's, you have to do some serious soul searching as to why you chose to spend your time doing that.
It's like the newspaper industry, right? More printing presses, more big buildings, right? Makes us look grander. We have brains that we're putting them out there. There's a point of diminishing returns in terms of what it's worth for a college education and how much debt you're willing to saddle yourself with.
Okay, first and foremost, I feel like this one, just to get it off the table, everyone is familiar with this one, but the cost. I mean, college is insanely expensive, and I feel like it's just continuing to get more expensive. Economy is like pretty bad right now, so this may be like a huge factor for students going into college now. Let's break it down. Like college costs like at least like 30,000 in some cases, anywhere up to like even 100, 200,000 in like the worst cases. And with this expensive cost, I gotta admit, like a lot of degrees just aren't worth it. If you're not going to college to be like a engineer, a doctor, a researcher, a lawyer, something that is like a very highly specific, highly skilled profession, I feel like if you're not going to college to study something like that big, it's probably not worth it. It's not worth the tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars Okay, and then just to bring in my own experience, I went to college to study computer science. Now, people may think like, oh, that seems like a highly skilled profession or field of study that college is necessary. But honestly, even for computer science, I would argue that it's not necessary to go to college if you want to study computer science. Now with things like boot camps that are online, just like online courses in general that offer like pretty much what you would get in college, but for a much cheaper price, and it's like on your own. You could do it at the comfort of your own home. And honest, I'm gonna be like real. Like, I feel like going to college, even for something like computer science, might be a waste of time. After the first like intro classes of computer science, where I would admit it was like very helpful because they walked you through a lot of the things. But after like the first 2 intro classes, I mean, I was pretty much on my own for computer science. The professors even started teaching students, like outright saying like, these lectures aren't really meant to be like teaching you anything. It's more just to kind of go over the notes and to answer any questions you have. And yeah, it was pretty much true. Like oftentimes the professors would say, Google is your best resource for getting help with your homework assignments. And they're like, yeah, I'm just going to be honest. Some of my professors even coined the term like Google foo, where they would say like, honestly, you're going to be spending most of your time on Google websites like Stack Overflow. Yeah, and that's where I did most of my learning. I did most of my learning from YouTube, Google, and other students. I did not do a lot of learning from my professors. I even stopped buying textbooks after my first year because one thing, if I really needed the textbook, I mean, not saying I, condone any of this, but like you can find a lot of textbooks for free online. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but yeah, that's exactly what a bunch of students did. They learned from Google, they learned from YouTube. Sometimes I would go to lectures just like for fun, and half the lecture hall would be empty just because I feel like kids knew, or like the students knew, that the lectures weren't really that useful and that they were going to be doing all of their learning on their own anyway. So there was no point in going to lectures. I stopped going to lectures. I stopped buying textbooks after my second year into computer science, just because it just like wasn't worth going. It wasn't worth paying for the textbooks, and it wasn't worth going to lecture. Oftentimes I would fall asleep just like I did in high school because they would literally just be reading their notes. Do with that information what you will. Maybe not, I'm like I said, not all fields of study are going to be like that, but I would argue a majority of them are like that. I even like did a little bit of an experiment when I was in college, and I went to like random lecture halls, and I found that it was more or less like the same thing. Now, I don't know, everyone's learning, technique, experience, everyone learns differently. And to some people, it may be like very helpful to attend these lectures where someone reads you their own notes. And maybe, you might be someone that has like a really good question and you could go to lecture. But are these like moments of like where you have a question and you want someone to read notes to you, is that really worth tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars? I mean, probably not. Like I said, I did most of my learning on my own through Google, through YouTube, and through other students, So, like I said, unless you're going to college to study something very specific, something that requires, something beyond just like a professor, just beyond a textbook, it probably won't be so worth it to go to college.
I taught school for 20 years in the inner city, so don't even think about messing with me.
Another con is that kind of like contradicts like the previous pro where I said like a great reason why you should go to college is because you have access to experienced faculty, like professors who have studied that field of study or been in that field of study for years. Now, that is a pro for sure. And I think most professors will be, passionate about what they're studying and will be very helpful in, helping you with answer questions or being a mentor or anything like that. There are definitely good professors, and that still is more of a pro than a con. But I think it's still worth noting that you will encounter, bad professors, like those tenured professors that don't really care about teaching. And just like in high school, maybe you might have experience with these kinds of teachers in high school, but like they're generally seen as like easy A classes. Some professors still don't really care, even though you're in an institution where you're paying thousands of dollars to be taught by experienced individuals. oftentimes, or not often, but like sometimes, you will find that these experienced individuals don't really care about teaching. And, they're kind of just there to, get their paycheck or whatever the reason is for teaching. But I will say that there are still very good professors that do inspire and are good motivators. I still remember like the top 3 professors I had in college, who to this day I feel like still had a good impact on me and actually taught me like that it is very like exciting to learn. So yeah, you will encounter good professors and you will encounter bad professors.
So, how long have you been here?
The last con I want to go over is, just how slow it is. It takes years to, graduate. And on top of that, you're still expected to have experience after you graduate. So it's not enough just to go to college anymore. While you're in college, you're expected to do internships and to shadow or something, or to find a mentor, to get some sort of experience besides just education. And so that to me is kind of like, well, I'm so busy like taking all these classes. I switched majors, so that was kind of a difficult thing for me. And then COVID happened. And so to me, I came out of college thinking like, well, there's so much things happened while I was in college that I felt like, I didn't really have time to get that experience. So even after college, I was still left feeling kind of like unfulfilled or like unprepared for the workforce, just because like, okay, yeah, I got this degree and I learned all these things, but I still don't have actual experience for, what I want to do. So after college, I'm still left, just as lost as I was before I went to college. The only thing that changed is like maybe I just know more, I'm smarter, but I still don't have that like confidence or that experience to kind of go out and get a job. Now, another thing about like how slow it is like I originally went into college, as a biological sciences major. I wanted to study to become a physical therapist. And it wasn't until like I realized I would have to go to school for 4 years learning like a bunch of other things that I wasn't really interested in. Not only did I have to study or take classes for my GEs, but I also had to take like prerequisite classes before I can even study the things that I wanted to study. I originally, because I wanted to become a physical therapist, like I wanted to get into like exercise science or like kinesthesiology. I can't never say that right. But I found out that before I can even study the things that I actually wanted to study, I would have to take 4 years of classes of just fluff. I had to take chemistry, like biochemistry, physics, and all these other things before I can even study just simple health. And it's like, well, like I get it. It's like maybe it's important to kind of have a background knowledge to be well-rounded, to know more than just what you want to study. But to me, I couldn't help but think like, why am I wasting so much money and time studying things that I didn't even want to study? Like I wanted to study health and sports science, exercise science, and I'd have to study 4 years of just complete random like prerequisite classes before I can study the things I want to study. Not to mention, that is just undergrad. Now, to be a physical therapist, I would also have to go to grad school or PT school, and then who knows how long that would take, another 4 years, 5, 6 years. And that's just the education part. You'd also have to get that experience outside of the education part. I don't know. To me, that seemed like a waste of like time and money. I thought I would be able to go in, be able to study the things I want to study, the things I need to know to work in the field that I want to work in. But, it was kind of just like high school where you kind of just forced to take a lot of classes that you don't really want to take and that you're not really interested in before you can study the things that you want to study. Now, even when I was in computer science, there were some classes like I had to take graph theory. You learn a bunch of like theories and proofs and all this stuff. And it's like, when I'm working my job, like I will never have to worry about proving anything or to like, oh, the theory of this is actually this. No, like when you work, you just kind of, do the work, you do the specific task that you need to do. Like, I don't know why colleges and curriculums still want to like hammer in these like old theories and make you do all these old like proofs and stuff. And I gotta admit, like it's like, I guess like I understand that it's like your brain is like a muscle. It's still, beneficial to kind of go through all this stuff just to kind of like train your brain to learn and to, it's like a muscle. You're just training your brain. But like, wouldn't it just be better to do two things at once, like study something specific to what you actually want to work in. And because that also trains your brain. Why am I like training my brain about filling it with all this like other stuff that I wasn't interested in, just to say that like, oh, I'm a well-rounded student. The way I think about it is like, if I'm an athlete and I want to become like a really good basketball player, now I go to this training camp and they train me, they do like football exercises or soccer exercises or baseball exercises. Yeah, that's still going to be like beneficial for my health and body. Like I'm still doing conditioning, but it's not specific to basketball. What I came was to become a better basketball player, I mean, yeah, it's still cool to kind of be good at football and baseball and soccer, but like I really just want to focus on basketball. And wouldn't it be more beneficial to just solely do like basketball training and to become the best basketball player? Like, why do I have to study, like do all these like football training and soccer training just because it's all sports related, and it will still like get me conditioned, but it won't get me as conditioned if I was just training specifically for basketball. That's how I saw like the education system that they had. It's like I wanted to study artificial intelligence and machine learning and data mining. And it wasn't until the last 2-3 quarters while I was in college where I actually started taking classes for artificial intelligence and machine learning. So what were the previous 3 years? What was I doing the previous 3 years? I don't know. Learning about graph theory and chemistry and all this other stuff. Why? I don't know. I'm never going to use that. But, I still have to do it because it proves that I followed the track. You see what I'm getting at here? So it's like college is like really slow and it takes years, and you're going to be learning a lot of stuff that honestly you'll never see again in your life ever again. And especially now, like I think because I went to college when COVID, happened, and a lot of these classes went online and remote. Even after COVID, a lot of professors like still offered their lectures online, and there were still online classes and online recorded lectures. And so that kind of also like made me realize, like, a lot of the stuff people get from college, like with contemporary technology, where we're at right now with like internet and stuff, like you can get a lot of the knowledge and the things you need just online. YouTube is a great resource to like learn things, and just like Google, take a 10 weeks highly specific specialized course and learn the things that you need to learn to get the job that you want. And I'm sure that this will probably be offered for, other fields of study as well. Whether you want to be like an accountant, whether you want to be in business, finance, do your own startup, like the resources that you need, oftentimes you can just find online for free. You don't need to go to institution that costs tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this education anymore. We're living in the future now. Information is widely accessible through the internet. It's, you no longer need to pay so much money. You no longer need, these professors. You no longer need a lot of the resources that college offers, because a lot of it, is just free for online. Now, I will say it's a lot harder to discipline yourself to learn on your own. Now that I'm out of college, I really believe that learning never stops, that you should always be trying to learn something new. So now that I'm out of college, I will admit it's a lot harder than I thought to kind of keep yourself on track to kind of learn something. I still, go on YouTube to learn a lot of stuff, but I also signed up for courses or websites like Brilliant or like Skillshare, obviously not sponsored, but, just to kind of keep myself engaged and to learn something new every day. Like I try to do that, but it's a lot harder. Like I said, one of the pros I mentioned with school is that it's a good motivator. It keeps you on track. It keeps you moving forward. Now, when you're on your own, if you decide not to go to college, or it's a lot harder to keep yourself on track and motivated and to kind of learn. So I will say that if you are someone that cannot keep yourself on track or motivated to learn something, well, you probably should go to college, just because it's important to learn. Getting a degree is still proves something. If you know that you're not going to be pushing yourself to learn on your own, then maybe you need to pay a lot of money to kind of force you to learn. But I will say it's just not it's not necessary. It's not the only way. If you are passionate about something specific, or if you know that you can keep yourself accountable, I would argue just consider not going to college, or at the very least consider community college. Try community college first, especially because the first 2 years of university, you're going to be learning GEs anyway. By going to community college, you could be saving a lot of money. After you get your associate's degree through community college, that you still want to pursue, your bachelor's, well, then you can go into college that way. That way you're kind of using that institution for like what really matters. Not your GEs, but like the stuff that you actually want to study. And that that could save you a lot of money. And you can kind of get the best of both worlds. Now, I will also say it doesn't have to be that you like never go to college, but maybe just take a few gap years. I would argue that if I were to go to college now that I'm older and I kind of have more of my stuff together, my frontal lobe is more developed and I'm able to kind of be more responsible. Maybe I think if I went to college now, I'd probably get a lot more out of it rather than if I went, because I went straight out of high school, still a kid. I didn't really know how to make my own decisions. And so going to college, like right after high school, I feel like, can kind of like scare you away from learning. Rather, if you went, to college when you were a little bit older, you took a little bit of gap year to work a little bit, to get some life experience, to kind of take a break from school. I think maybe going to college later would be better.
In my experience in business, there is very little difference, if any, between a very high-priced business education and what's available for a lot less money. I went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln my last year in college. I went to Wharton for a couple of years before that. I learned just as much at the University of Nebraska as I did at Wharton. You need to be prodded in the right direction, but an awful lot of it is self-taught. It isn't necessary to pay $30,000 or $35,000 a year to go to some big-name school to get the education at all. I mean,
I rambled a lot, so just to kind of summarize it, our most important determining factors on whether or not you should go to college is 1, do go to college if you're studying something very specific. Lawyer, engineer, doctor, anything that requires very like high technical skills and where you kind of need to take advantage of the resources that college offers, definitely go to college. I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer. You don't really have a choice, especially if you want to get into research or something like that. Another big one where you have to go to grad school. College is necessary. You can't. There's no workaround. But for anything else, I don't know, even like computer science, political science, art degree, dance, music, anything else, psychology, or I don't know. Honestly, I would consider going to community college or honestly just going out on your own, getting that real world experience. You can learn like pretty much everything you need to know online. You can find a mentor. I say that like networking is a lot easier in college, but it's not impossible to do out in the real world. College isn't the only place where you can like connect with people. There are still ways to network even outside on your own. Now, another determining factor on whether or not you should go to college is you kind of have to ask yourself, are you a disciplined person? Can you learn on your own? Do you know how to keep yourself motivated and on track? Move forward on your own without a grading system, without a professor, without like a track to follow. Like, can you do that on your own? You have to be honest with yourself. I feel like a lot of people, might be like 50-50. A lot of people kind of need that structure. And you kind of need someone to tell them what to do. And it's not a bad thing. Everyone has different strengths. But you just ask yourself, can you keep yourself motivated? And if the answer is yes, then, maybe college is not necessary. You could skip a lot of the time and the money and kind of just go straight into the workforce, get that experience. Okay, so I think that's everything I have to say for this video. I hope you were able to get something out of it. And if you get anything out of it, I just know that, there's always another way. There isn't only one way to do things. There are plenty of ways to do things. Like, the possibilities are kind of endless. College is not the only way to be successful. You have more capability and power than you think. You don't need the piece of paper to kind of prove anything, prove that you're smart. You can be smart on your own. Don't think that like college is completely necessary and that you can't live without it. No, like I think we should start teaching kids to not be so reliant on like these school systems. With the power of like the internet and online resources, you can kind of nowadays like learn anything that you want to learn for free. Or at least not as expensive as college. I hope this kind of helps you make a decision, if you're on the fence on whether or not you should go to college, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you're in college, what do you think about it? If you're in high school applying to colleges right now, what are your fears or expectations? Or if you're like me, already out of college, if you have anything to reflect on, let me know in the comments. But yeah, other than that, hope all you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.